Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. When a bulldozer smashes through a steel gate at dawn and you're standing there with nothing but a shotgun and 20 years of blood and sweat in your land, you really find out who you are. Or at least who people think you are. Because in that moment, to Karen Blackwood, the president of the Whispering Pines HOA, safe in her air-conditioned SUV with her army of hired goons, I was just an obstacle. Some stubborn hick refusing to kneel to her plastic authority. I swear, there's nothing quite like being treated like a stain on someone's designer shoes to clarify what you're willing to fight for. But let me back up a sec. This wasn't always a war zone. It used to be paradise. My name's Tim Danvers. 20 years back, all I wanted was silence. Not nobody's texting me, silence. Real, bone-deep quiet. I found it on these 20 acres. My wife Lisa and I, we built our life out here with our own hands. Our place was nothing fancy, but it was home. Mornings smelled like cold creek water and pine needles, evenings like fresh bread and tomato vines. I had a workshop out back, and Lisa had her garden, her pride and joy. We didn't have neighbors close enough to borrow sugar, and that suited us just fine. We'd done our time in the city, boxed in by concrete and sirens, counting cracks in a 4x4 balcony. The first month out here, every snap of a twig made me flinch, like my nervous system was detoxing from all that noise. But that quiet, that was oxygen. Then, a year or so back, things started changing. First came the bulldozers, chewing up the empty farm next door. Then pipes, then cookie-cutter McMansions lined up like teeth. And suddenly, we had neighbors, sort of. The estates at Whispering Pines. HOA country. You know the type. Rules for your mailbox, your paint color, the shape of your damn mulch pile. Everything we'd run from in the city, now rising up right next door. Our road, the only way in or out, was a long, rutted stretch of dirt. On my deed, it's clear as daylight, that road's mine. But from their pristine lawns, those new neighbors saw blight. Saw my handmade gate, my old work truck, and decided we were bringing down their property values with every speck of dust. And, apparently, one woman decided it was her holy mission to rectify the situation. It started small, like these things always do. A letter in the mailbox, thick, fancy envelope, smelling like cheap lavender perfume and entitlement. Community harmony, it said. Aesthetic standards. Polite, on the surface. The kind of letter you'd get for a wedding. Except instead of inviting us, it was informing us. Our unpaved access route, my driveway, mind you, was an eyesore. Wouldn't we like to consider paving it, for the good of the community? I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. They wanted me to drop 50 grand paving a half-mile of dirt, because some city folks didn't like looking at, well, the country. Welcome to rural America, I guess. I burned that letter in the wood stove and told Lisa it was junk mail. She didn't laugh. I saw that little crease between her eyebrows, the one that only showed up when she was worried. I tried to play it off, but it wasn't that easy to forget. The next week, a new letter showed up. Not so polite. This time, a second notice of noncompliance, with $100 a day in fines for every day I left my driveway unpaved. Signed by Karen Blackwood, HOA president. I stuck it on the fridge next to one of Lisa's drawings, a zucchini as big as a baseball bat. I figured if I ignored it, it'd go away. Except that's not how these people work. Diplomacy, I thought. Maybe they'd listen to reason. So I stomped into their fancy clubhouse, still in my work clothes, smelling like diesel and grease, right in the middle of their HOA meeting. Karen was at the podium, droning on about mailbox patina's and community legacy, in a suit so beige it was basically camouflage for personality. 30 heads swiveled my way, like I was some kind of wild animal loose in the Olive Garden. "Excuse me, sir, delivery's in the rear," she said, looking over her glasses. I set her straight. "I'm Tim Danvers, the guy with the offensive driveway." She tried to lay down the law. "You're accruing substantial fines, Mr. Danvers." I told her the only thing I was accruing was kindling for my stove. Someone in the front row started whining about dust on his Lexus, like the country air itself was a personal insult. "Wash your car," I said. Karen gave me a lecture about lifestyle aesthetic. I laughed so loud it echoed off the casket-vaulted ceiling. "Karen, you people are regulating mailbox rust. That's not a lifestyle, that's a nervous condition." On my way out, a woman in the second row, clutching a binder labeled Approved Mulch Varieties, squeaked, "He's right, Karen. Maybe the rules are excessive." The room went quiet. Karen hissed something about unauthorized gnome incidents. I shook my head and left, but not before telling them, "You're building a prison with nice landscaping. Leave us alone." I wish that had been the end of it. See, that's the thing about paper tyrants. They never quit. A week later, someone snuck onto my land in the dead of night and planted a line of orange flags right across my property, like they were dividing up a Monopoly board. Buster, our old hound, found them first, barking his head off. Each flag marked a straight line, right where my driveway ran. That was no longer a request. That was a threat. I pulled every flag and hung them from my gate for all to see. It was a warning. But you ever notice how folks with too much power and not enough sense don't see warnings? They see invitations? The next visit was less polite. Karen herself showed up, dressed like she was headed to a spa opening, flanked by two muscle-bound security types in matching polo shirts. She tried the legalese. Community covenants grant the HOA absolute right of entry. I cut her off. "Your rules stop at my fence. Turn your circus around, or I'll have you cited for trespassing." She laughed. "The sheriff eats at our clubhouse every Thursday. You think he cares about a stubborn squatter?" Her lead goon, Hose, tried the intimidation routine, putting his hand on my gate. "Don't touch my gate," I said. Flat. Not a threat, just fact. There's a kind of quiet that unsettles tough guys more than any yelling. They left, but not with any grace. "We'll be back with a court order," she promised. And she did try, just not a real one. Next, her maintenance crew showed up. Two young guys, cocky, crowbars in hand, ready to tear down my gate. Didn't even look toward the house. "Karen said you'd be difficult." One of them sneered, waving a paper at me. The other shoved me in the chest. Bad move. I tossed him like a hay bale, face first into the gravel. His buddy came at me with a crowbar, swung hard, missed even harder. I dropped to one knee, swept his legs, and left him howling in the dust. 8 seconds. Two thugs, zero dignity. When I told them, "Are we clear? You don't touch me, you don't touch my gate, you don't set foot on my land," they got the message. For now. But I knew the escalation wasn't done. When bullies lose face, they double down. That Saturday night, the lights went out. Not the oops, the power's out kind. Our lines had been cut, clean as a whistle. That's not an accident, that's sabotage. And while I was out checking the main breaker, Lisa's scream ripped through the night. Pure terror. I ran faster than I thought possible, straight into the house. The front window was shattered, a rock the size of a loaf of bread lying among the shards, a note tied to it. Final notice. Failure to vacate will result in asset liquidation via combustion. Leave now. That's when it stopped being about driveways and started being about survival. You want to see a quiet man turn dangerous? Threaten his wife. The next morning, I got to work. I bought the best security system in the county. 8 high-def night vision cameras, motion sensors everywhere. Recordings uploaded straight to the cloud. Spent the rest of the day turning my home into a fortress. Lisa packed go bags, just in case. We slept light, my shotgun on the nightstand, her hand in mine. I swore to her, "This ends soon. I promise." I rebuilt my gate, double-thick steel I-beams, the kind that stop trucks. Welded cross braces, concrete footings sunk deep. It was more wall than gate, and I hung a new lock you couldn't cut with a torch. But I wasn't just playing defense anymore. The next time they came, I'd be ready. I cleaned and loaded my shotgun, my 30-06, my sidearm. I wasn't looking for a fight, but I was done hiding from one. The world gets real small when you're waiting for violence in your own home. Then, the attack came, just after dawn, like something out of a movie. My camera system buzzed, a yellow bulldozer at my gate, with Karen's black SUV parked up the road, watching. 8 men behind it, armed with tools and bad intentions. Lisa went to the safe room with the emergency radio, her face pale but determined. I slipped out the back, took up position behind a wall of engine blocks, shotgun ready. The bulldozer hit my gate with a scream of metal. It held, for a second, then physics won, and my gate was torn free. They started tearing up my road, widening it, just raw destruction. I waited, breath steady, aimed for the dozer's radiator, and fired. Black coolant and steam poured out. The beast died in its tracks. Then, I triggered the firewood trap I'd set up the night before. Logs crashed down, blocking the backup backhoe. Now, it was just man versus man. Hose yelled for his guys to drag them out. I stepped out, racked the shotgun, and called out, "Private property. The sheriff's on the way. Get off my land." Half of them hesitated. I fired a warning shot into the dirt, just to make sure they got the message. Some bolted. The rest came at me in a rage. The fight that followed was pure chaos, a blur of fists, metal, and rage. A bat swung at my head. I ducked, drove a guy into the wall so hard he slid down and stayed down. Took a pipe wrench on the arm, pretty sure it broke something, but I kept moving, landed 3 hard shots to another guy's ribs. The last serious threat was Ho's younger, stronger, furious. He pinned me, drew back his fist. I spat blood in his face, bought myself half a second, grabbed the shotgun from the dirt and drove the stock into his chest. He hit the ground and stayed there. The others scattered. The sirens started up in the distance. And in the middle of all that, a kid, barely out of his teens, hiding behind a truck, gave up. She said it was legal. She said we had paperwork. When I pushed, he broke. Showed me the so-called court order, just a sloppy forgery, Karen's last, desperate bluff. The sheriff arrived, Sheriff Miller, county legend, calm as a stone. Karen tried to scream me into handcuffs, ranting about her rights and paperwork. Miller took one look at the folder, then at Karen, and told her flat out, "That's about the worst forgery I've seen in my career. Ma'am, you're under arrest for uttering a forged instrument, criminal trespass, conspiracy, assault, destruction of property." Her face went from red to white. "No, you can't. I'm the president," she shrieked. Miller didn't even blink. "Cuff her." She went to jail. Hose and the rest too. The deputies watched my security footage, saw everything. The attack, the warning, the defense. I was clear, self-defense, no charges. By noon, the bulldozer was gone, the road scarred, but ours again. Turns out, Karen had been running that HOA like a mob boss, embezzling funds, blackmailing residents, enforcing her will through intimidation. When the news broke, her own community revolted, kicked out the entire board, fired the management company, called the cops on themselves just to be safe. My lawyer cleaned them out in civil court. The insurance company settled for everything: damages, lawyer fees, pain, and suffering. Money's nice, sure, but it wasn't about the cash. It was about justice, about making it clear you don't get to bully people off their land. A few days after, a neighbor from the estate showed up, Bob, 3 streets over, clutching a casserole. "We didn't all agree with Karen," he said. "Most of us just wanted to live in peace. You did us a favor." He left the lasagna on the fence post, a white flag in a Pyrex dish. Lisa and I ate it on the porch, watching the sunset. It was damn good, tasted like truce. I built a new gate, the strongest yet, and carved a sign out of oak. Private property. We defend what is ours. The silence returned, not brittle, but hard won. One night, Lisa asked, "It's over, right?" I squeezed her hand. "For now." You know, folks always say there's a fine line between right and wrong, justice and revenge. But out here, sometimes you gotta dig your boots in and draw that line yourself. So, what do you think? Was I right to fight? Where's the line between standing up and going too far? Drop a comment below. Tell me your thoughts on justice, and maybe share your own story. Because out here, sometimes the quietest people have the loudest stories to tell.